All right. So, Tati and Steve, I don't know if this is the right way to explain this, but I feel like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, the 1 to 4% of enterprise that are AI mature, let's say that's grown to maybe 5 to 10%. So that leaves, let's say, 90% of enterprises. And let's say in the small to mid-size arena, it's somewhat equivalent. And the reason I'm setting it up that way is that there is a whole lot going on. The world's moving faster than ever before, and it's not slowing down, it's speeding up. And I think one of the things that the three of us have talked about often is that there's probably a laundry list of questions that are keeping executives up at night in this area. It's probably getting longer, and it probably evolves every 10 or so days with these big developments, right? Such as Grok 4 coming out. What are the implications of that versus, OpenAI versus Anthropic, et cetera? And so I know that the two of you in particular have a lot of perspective on maybe how could or how should executives at all different size companies think about getting some help in answering these questions, and or what kind of habits should they start to develop that could help with this, because I know it keeps them up at night, and I have these conversations all the time. I'm always so curious of like, what is the solution, and how do you give people confidence that they're maybe able to answer questions that they know they don't know right now, and or they know they don't know, and how do they step into it? Like, what are some thoughts or some ideas and some perspective on how to answer those questions? I'm going to leave it blank. Whichever one of you jumps in, you get to answer first.
Go ahead, Tati.
I was gonna say,
Such
I
a
like
gentleman.
that.
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Tati. No, you first.
No, listen. If there's something when I was on the seat, the executive seat, is what is the source that I can trust for these questions, right? What's keeping me up at night? Right now, leading an organization, there is a large portion of that list of what's keeping me up at night that's related to AI and technology. There's absolutely no doubt. How would it disrupt my business? Are my people using it? Are they using it right? Do we have the right governance in place? Do I know what's going on? What are we missing? What are the things that are not getting done that should be getting done? Did that vendor tell me the right thing? There's so much that's out there. So the idea of having the ability to get no BS information to me, to get that source, to get what's really happening. And the thing is that you can't do that, you can't get on ChatGPT, you can't get on Claude and just ask this. You can, but what you're gonna get is not this. This is far, far beyond, because it knows AI doesn't know your people, doesn't know your systems, doesn't know your processes. So you need that insight. You need a layer of insight that, if you had the opportunity to have access to that on a ongoing basis, where you could be, you could have the opportunity to ask these tough questions to someone that will have no judgment, that will have full confidentiality, but at the same time will give you the right answers, because we all have that person that's full confidence, full confidentiality, but it's usually, your partner or your mom or someone that's not going to give you the answer that you need on this. Some of us have mentors, but ultimately, how do you get this from the people who are the experts? And if they don't have that precise answer, they'll get it from the right places, right? So having that confidence on that, I think that's a really fantastic way. When you lead and the higher you go, people say that it's very lonely, and it's true, because there are fewer and fewer places that you can ask the hard questions, and especially fewer and fewer places, and almost no place where you can go ask the hard questions without judgment, without being points deducted, if you will. From going out there and doing this, and the reality, and that's what a lot of the paralysis that we see right now, and folks not moving forward or moving very slow or just checking the box to say, all right, I'm doing something here, is because of that, because there's not an opportunity for that. So as you know, I'm very passionate about this topic. I can keep on going, but I'll pass it on to Steve.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the point there, which is the expertise that you surround yourself with, right? And you got to be able to tap into various different expertise, whether or not that's internal to your team or external. That's why the business of consulting exists, right? The ability to run ideas past other people, and then also the kind of concept of coaching and mentorship and all that fun stuff. So I think that, as a executive in this very fast-paced world that we're in with AI right now, it is about keeping up through many, many different channels, whether or not that is, human in the loop type of channel, right, where you're asking for advice, hiring the right people, bringing in the right expertise, or, the async method of basically subscribing to all the right materials, keeping up with the various different social media channels that exist around AI, and then also being able to follow the expertise from all the various different AI companies, right? I think if you keep yourself in the loop that way, there's a great opportunity to keep your own expertise up. So it's a combination of those two things: having the right consultants and the right expertise and the right team members that can basically bring that expertise to you, and then also keeping your own intelligence up as it relates to following the various different informational channels that are out there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There was I'm gonna forget the person's name, but I'll make sure we drop it in the notes. But there's this fantastic leader. I think it's Bain Capital. She's a principal. She invests in this space, and she builds in public very, very effectively on LinkedIn in particular, as well as I think Twitter, but for sure LinkedIn. And she wrote a post last week, which essentially said, I get a question often, which is, and it feels a little skeptical, but it's like, hey, do you use these AI tools to do what you do? And therefore the question felt a little bit, kind of her words, not mine, like judging her content and saying, oh, well, you use AI, it's not your thinking. And she said, not only do I use it, but it makes me more effective with the writing that I put forth, and it makes me smarter about the investments that I make. And I encourage everyone to do that. And she unpacked it in this extraordinary way. But one of the things she mentioned, which I don't know if this is useful or helpful, is that she said, under no circumstance do I ever outsource the thinking, the original thinking, the foundational thinking, to the models, right? Because if and when you do that, it becomes hollow and it doesn't have your point of view, and it just becomes average like anything else in this kind of orbit. She's like, alternatively, when I use those models that get to know me and my investment interests and so on and so forth, and have context and all that super duper high horsepower short-term memory meets other things, knowledge base and everything that comes with it, it makes me so much more effective in what it is that I'm able to think through, what I'm able to publish, and how much I carry forward for the next decision I'm trying to make. And I think that was a really interesting post, because she's more or less talking about some of the things, I think, to your point, Steve and Tati, that executives might not necessarily want to talk about as much, which is how much do we share about the tools that we are using versus being judged in the workplace or otherwise. I don't know if either of you all have any thoughts on that, but I think that's an interesting territory, the governance, the guidelines, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and to add a point to what you're saying, the value is not, it's not giving you an answer where you could Google it or you could ask yourself, is how do we help you see around the corners? We help you choose the right move, the next move, avoid wasted time that, could you get this, the conversation I have often, could you get to that answer? Potentially it could take you 20 times longer than it would take Steve or I or Alec to get to that question, to that answer, or an expert in any other area, right? Where are the blind spots? Where are the things you don't see? So I think that there's a really big piece that speaks to that. I would have, I'd be the first to sign up if I were running a company, because you when you're leading, you don't need content, and that's the thing, right? There's so many content platforms out there, and people are like, "Oh, I'll give you content," or there's various ways. You need a smart person who can look at your real situation and tell you what actually matters. That's why I say, like, and I will pay for this myself, even if the company said, "Well, this is not part of our strategy," and I'm not advocating that people do that. But what I'm saying is the value is there because nothing else will give you that kind of clarity. You're not going to get that kind of clarity elsewhere. And this idea of working better and smarter and helping you see, again, with timing. I had a question. A client asked me the other day, what's the difference between working with you and then if we're doing this on our own? And I was very honest with them. You could probably arrive at, say, 30 to 40% of the things that I will arrive at. It will take you a lot longer. And on the execution side, you could probably get to about 10% of what I would deliver, 10% of the results that I would. So can you do it? Sure. But as it applies to everything else in our lives, and some things more extreme than others, it's not a good investment of time and money in a normal setting, in a setting where what you learned yesterday may be different than what we're learning tomorrow. That it becomes an exponentially bigger problem. And Steve?
No, I mean, to me, it's the pace at which you can access information and make decisions and take action on things, right? And I happen to be of age that I was around when Google first came out, and it was amazing. And I didn't have hindsight at that point because I was super young to actually invest in Google. But at that time, using it as a young engineer, it was like, oh wait, I can get access to this information as fast as possible and like look things up and search and how do I write this code, how do I write this SQL, all that fun stuff. And now that's advanced even further, whether or not it's business information, coding engineering information, the ability to auto-generate stuff, like it's just quicker, and it just means that we can move at pace. The stuff that's the latest and greatest that's come out from Claude around the coding side is amazing. Our engineers use it all the time, but the ability to tap into somebody who is an expert in this stuff to move rapidly, to move at pace, that the people that do that are going to win and accelerate their careers or their company very, very quickly, faster than certainly others who do not stay up on the information around AI or do not have access to that expertise. So it's just an amazing time that we live in, and I wish that I invested in Google way back in the day, but did not have that hindsight for sure.
There's always the next one, There's always the next one.
You can invest in Aurora now, Steve.
Yes.
I thought you could say Bitcoin. Bitcoin's doing something pretty special lately. That being said, so this is great, and I the only thing I would leave it with too is, because I know I always say the same stuff, but I do think it's so important that folks look to themselves, but also to others to help them help themselves. Because once you experience the magic and the horsepower, directly inside of certain workflows, all you're going to want to do is take it to the next level and the next level and the next level, and then spread that across an organization. Which reminds me of the Yum Brands, Michael Forster, the VP of AI, who did a phenomenal job presenting at the Snowflake Summit how they locked the CEO, CFO, and I think it was 398 of the other executives in a room for 7 business days. And they basically just tried their best with a curriculum that was designed, I believe, by Harvard Business School to help everyone unlock that magical moment and that mindset, in part through hands in dirt, exercises. And it clearly has worked. But in any case, I think there's always a seat at the table for lots of different types of folks, but it is an exciting time. So we'll leave it there. Always a pleasure, Steve, Tati. Thanks for this one. I'm sure folks are going to dig it.
Awesome.
We'll see you.